Hello, this is Eileen, the environmental educator. In this video, we're gonna talk about hell freezing over. Well, not exactly, kind of the opposite. Right now, they're saying that parts of Antarctica are turning green faster than they thought. Of course, from climate change, and it has shocked scientists. So these articles are October 4th, 2024. Today is the 6th. This was big news on Friday. It was on CNN here. Scientists look at images from space to see how fast Antarctica is turning green. Here's what they found. This was in UK Metro. The worrying satellite image shows Antarctica is turning green at a dramatic rate. Now, I saw this on stevequayle.com, and it fell off the first page, but it's here on the third page, and it shows the worrying satellite images show Antarctica turning green at a dramatic rate. But then it says, now this is his own little comment, he always puts little comments out here, Antarctica's subsea volcanoes and those beneath the ice are contributing to the ice melting at an accelerating rate. So Steve does a lot of work and publishes a lot of things about what goes on in Antarctica, and he knows a lot about the planet. And he's saying subsea volcanoes and those beneath the ice are contributing. So, of course, the propaganda outlets aren't going to tell you anything like that, but they have satellite images show the area covered by vegetation has grown dramatically and is now 10 times larger than it was 4 decades ago, and the rate of change is speeding up. So you're like, oh my God, that's so alarming. Well, we're still talking about a very small area here, even though it has left the scientists shocked. We're talking about 12 square kilometers, which is about 7.5 square miles. And this only goes to 2021. So they just put out all this information, but it's based on satellite images from 3 years ago. They say that in 1986, 0.6 square miles had vegetation on the peninsula where this is found, and now today, well, in 2021, it's up to 12 square kilometers or 7.5 square miles. They've added about 7 square miles of vegetation here, and they find it to be alarming because one of the things they say is that the greening could also reduce the peninsula's ability to reflect solar radiation back into space because darker surfaces absorb more heat. So that's true. The white reflects the solar light and radiation coming in, and it reflects it back out to space, but darker objects will absorb it, so then that makes the area heat up even more. And even if Steve is right here where he says that it's from subsea volcanoes, the thing is it says that seeds, spores, and plant fragments can readily find their way to the Antarctic Peninsula on the boots or equipment of tourists and researchers, or via more traditional routes associated with migrating birds and the wind. And so the risk here is clear. So even if it's heating up by subsea volcanoes, the fact that tourists and researchers are walking around on boots that could have been anywhere else in the world, they can bring seeds and spores and plant fragments from all over the world there, okay? And so they call that invasive species. They say that the more the peninsula greens, the more soil will form and the more likely the region will become favorable for invasive species, potentially threatening native wildlife. And that can happen anywhere. I've done videos about invasive species, and when you get out of the water, clean everything out. Even the boots you were wearing, the gloves you were wearing, everything. Clean it out in the water you were in, because just even the people going down there can bring species that shouldn't be down there. Now, Earth's been around for 5 billion years, and the poles have been tropical, okay? So if the ice melts in Antarctica, for Earth, it's just a process of evolution. What it can do to climate and your ability to survive in the climate and habitat you're accustomed to Now that's a whole nother story. So right up here, this says that it was zero point 0.4 square miles in 1986. The other article said 0.6, and it says that it's 5 square miles, not the 7.5 that the other article reported. But the amount of greening down there in Antarctica is speeding up for one reason or another. You got the greening here, the icebergs there, and they say that the scientists use satellite imagery and data to analyze vegetation levels on the Antarctic Peninsula, a long mountain chain that points north to the tip of South America and which has been warming much faster than the global average. They found plant life, mostly mosses, had increased in this harsh environment more than tenfold over the past 4 decades, according to scientists at the universities of Exeter and Hertfordshire in England and the British Antarctic Survey. It was published Friday in the Journal of Nature Geoscience. One of the study's authors, an environmental scientist at the University of Exeter, said, while the landscape is still almost entirely snow, ice, and rock, this small green area has grown dramatically since the 1980s. And that same Thomas Rowland said that our findings confirm that the influence of anthropogenic climate change has no limit in its reach. Even on the Antarctic Peninsula, this most extreme, remote, isolated wilderness region, the landscape is changing, and these effects are visible from space. So it says Antarctica, the coldest place on Earth, has recently been gripped by extreme heat events. This summer, parts of the continent experienced a record-breaking heat wave with temperatures climbing up to 50 degrees Fahrenheit above normal from mid-July. They're having warming down there, and Steve will tell you that you also have to include into the equation the subsea volcanoes, and I'm not sure the people writing these articles are doing that, but the fact of the matter is, one way or another, it's greening down there. And Matthew Davey, an associate professor of physiological ecology at the Scottish Association for Marine Science and an expert on polar plant and microbe ecology, he told CNN that the study was an important progression for understanding the plant life in Antarctica. He said that we know that there are also large areas of lichens, grass and greens, and red snow algae that will also contribute to the vegetation area in Antarctica. He said while the actual area increase of plant life is small, the percentage rise is dramatic, and it shows the trend that vegetation is spreading, albeit slowly, in Antarctica. They say the next stage for the scientists will be to study how plants colonize recently exposed bare land as Antarctica's glaciers retreat further. So right now, down there at the southern portion of the planet, it's greening, and scientists are finding it alarming. Stay tuned, people.